Hi and welcome to Cancer Support Centre Help Yourself YouTube channel. I'm Kate and I am going to be talking about alkalising in this session. Hopefully you've already seen the first video. If not, it's well worth watching that one first, because in that video we talk about why we want to be less acidic and a bit more alkaline, why we want to be in the neutral area. And we go through sort of foods and benefits of why we're doing that. So you might want to watch that first if you haven't already seen it. So in this second video, I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail about some things we can specifically do to be less acidic, which is what we're really aiming for at the end of the day, because we don't want to be too alkaline. We just want to be somewhere in the middle, somewhere neutral. And the food that we're sort of exposed a lot to in the Western world is highly acidic, hence why we need to put a little bit more effort into becoming less so. So in the first video we talked about, at the end, about the GOSH program. So the GOSH program basically is 4 letters, and it stands for greens, oils, salt and hydration. So I have talked about that in the previous video. And basically to eat more alkalising food, and then you'll find that at the end of the first video I give you some lists of foods and where they fall on the acid alkaline scale. I mean, a prime example is greens are highly alkaline, and dairy, meat, alcohol, processed foods are all highly acidic. So, you know, we all deep down probably know what's better for us to eat. So we just really need to give some thought to that. But there are sort of a little sort of tricks of the trade, you might want to call them, but little things that you can do to perhaps compensate the acidic foods with the more alkaline foods. And I think when somebody's health is particularly poor, that's when you sort of rein it in and you really do try and follow as healthy a diet as possible. Like say in the case of, you know, sugars, if you have a diagnosis of cancer, then, you know, really sugars, which are highly acidic, are something that you want to try and minimise. But I'm also aware that, you know, I don't want to make the person miserable. So, you know, you do what you can, and it might be that you want to get some one-to-one advice at this time from a nutrition practitioner like myself. But anyhow, that's what we're aiming for. You know, we're aiming for moderation, but if if your health's particularly compromised, then I do think you can pull out all the stops basically to look after yourself. You can get pH, urine and saliva testing strips online. I know Amazon sell them, so if you wanted to, you could have a look at that. And they will give you a little display, and they will show you where you want to fall in the neutral area. So you can buy those relatively inexpensively, and I must admit I did do that, and I do it with some clients. So, you know, it's worth thinking about. And the best time, I believe, to test your pH is first thing in the morning, your first wee of the morning basically. Saliva tends to be a little bit erratic, so your urine can be more sort of indicative of where you actually are. So you might want to give that a go. So we've got the 3 steps to alkalising, and I think a real sort of armour in the whole alkalising journey is juicing. I mean, I'm such a huge fan of juicing, and first of all we need to know the difference between a juice and a smoothie. So a juice is where you are literally just extracting the juice from the piece of vegetable or fruit that you're putting through the juicer, whereas a smoothie, it's basically the whole thing normally. I mean, you might have taken the pips and the core out, let's say, of an apple, but you'll still generally get the fibre content, so it has to go through the stomach to be digested, whereas a juice doesn't. Within about 30 minutes or so of having a juice, it will hit your bloodstream with a highly concentrated level of vitamins and minerals and enzymes. The enzymes, you have to drink it pretty quickly to get those, so it's always a good idea to have your juice straight away. But saying that, if for convenience you need to make a few and freeze them or store them in the fridge, that is also brilliant, because you will get the minerals and the vitamins. So that's really great, because it's going to increase our energy. It's going to help strengthen our immunity. It's great for strong bones and a glowing complexion. It may facilitate weight loss for you, and it's also going to contribute to keeping your possibility of stroke and heart disease and cancers at bay. So juicing is it's like medicine, which is a little bit different maybe from a smoothie. It's like having a multivitamin. So it's really worth thinking about. So if you don't have one, it might be something that you want to think about getting. The one I use at the moment is a brand called Harom. It's a reasonably priced brand, and I'm really pleased with it. I would always suggest that you get a slow juicer as opposed to a centrifugal. So masticating / slow juicers are going to extract a lot more nutrition than a centrifugal. Centrifugal are the ones that they tend to use in, like, let's say Joe and the Juice, big juicing establishments, companies. So an example of a morning juice would be something like half a cucumber, 2 celery stalks, maybe a little bit of ginger and a handful of spinach, and some lemon. That can be really lovely in there, just to add a little bit of sort of sweet tartness to the flavour. If you're starting out, you might want to put maybe half an apple or an apple in there initially. I do strongly suggest to people to try and keep fruit to a minimum, because we don't want to raise our blood sugar, and if we have a highly fruity one, then we're going to be at risk of doing that. So generally more vegetables, no fruit, or literally just half or 1 piece of fruit. But when you're starting out, you might want to put 1 in there just to get used to the taste. It's also, there's so many ingredients. You can basically put anything in, any vegetable. Red pepper, I've mentioned that, but broccoli stalk is really nice in a juice. It adds a little bit of creaminess to it. Kale, I love fennel. Obviously you can put lime in there. You can put green beans, cauliflower. I've done a few during our period of lockdown. I've done a few juices with sweet potato. So you can just really experiment, but a basic one is probably the cucumber and the celery, the ginger, and the lemon, and maybe a little bit of spinach or a little bit of green pepper, something like that. So just play around with it, and maybe when you start out, get you use 1 piece of fruit, but just do think about it. If you haven't got a juicer, yes, they're a little bit more time consuming, making it, washing it up, but it's it is so amazing. I've just started having them. I sort of go through periods where obviously you're busy and you don't get round to it, so I've just started having, I've had one practically every morning this week, and yeah, I just think it's so great for your complexion, so great for energy levels, and it's also very alkalizing, because you're generally having the greens, you're having the celery, you're having the cucumber, you're having the lemon, so it's very alkalizing. I would suggest that if you're only going to have 1 a day, or 1 a few times a week, or even once a week, you try and have it on an empty stomach, because you don't want the body to be in the middle of trying to digest food. So actually it's great to have as the first thing. Maybe you might have your lemon water as your first drink, but then the juice is a great thing to have first thing in the morning. You've got it, you've done it, but you can have it in the afternoon, but just try and time it around when you think your stomach would be empty. So that would be 2 hours after you've eaten and half an hour before you eat, to get an empty stomach roughly. Obviously we're all made slightly differently. Drink it immediately, like I said, and also I made reference to the fact that if actually you're going to pre-make some. If you've got, a life where it's not practical to be juicing first thing in the morning, you can freeze them as well. If you think about it, you can order off these companies and pay quite a lot of money to have them delivered, and obviously they're frozen, so you can certainly do that. So that's really talking about juicing a little bit more. The other thing I wanted to talk about from an alkalizing point of view is something called Himalayan crystal salts. So I use Himalayan salt. It's my salt of preference. I suppose the other one I potentially would use is rock salt. Certainly wouldn't use table salt for anything. Himalayan crystal salts, they're free from modern day pollutants, and it's the same makeup that one would expect to see in a healthy person's plasma. So, it's very similar to the human makeup. And they supply the body with natural energy that's held in the crystals, and we can hold that effect for up to 24 hours. So they're very good to harmonize the alkaline and the acidic balance, and just basically to help us for things like clearing skin disease by clearing us from the inside out. They can also help to dissolve sediments, which can lead to joint disorders and build up in organs. And there's some talk that they can lower addictive cravings. So you can make yourself a Soleil solution. You would use a brand called Profusion. Well, you can use other brands, but this is the brand that I've used and found I've bought it in the past on Amazon, Profusion. And they're the rocks. You buy the rocks. And what you do is you put these rocks, maybe 2 or 3 of them, into a jam jar, a decent sized jam jar, and you would add filtered water, and you would pop it in the fridge, and after 24 hours it will have reached a 1% water salt solution, which is found in our blood and our tears. And some of the benefits is it can stimulate the stomach and intestines, stimulate digestion and metabolism, and balance the body's pH factor, as well as helping to get rid of heavy metals. So a really amazing drink to have. You can also use it if you have a problem with your eyes, if you have an eye infection, or if you had a skin issue, but you'd always want to dilute it down. So from the purpose of a drink, it's 1 teaspoon in a glass of water. So you'd have 1 teaspoon of the Soleil solution in a glass of water, and you'd have it, maybe first thing in the morning, or maybe another part of the day, but you want to have it once again on an empty stomach. So that's a really great, easy way to alkalize. And I know in the family, my daughters have used the salt solution diluted 10-to-1 for our eye problems and maybe problems on the skin. So it might be that we need to do a little bit of a video showing in more detail how to make this, but it really is as simple as you get the Himalayan rock salts, and you pop 2 or 3 into a jam jar, fill it up with filtered water, and after 24 hours your solution is ready, and it's 1 teaspoon. If you took more than 1 teaspoon, it would probably make you go to the toilets for a number 2. So if somebody's struggling in that department, you can take more. So that's the Soleil solution. The next thing I wanted to talk about was sprouting. So sprouting is basically a really great way to get a whole range of amazing nutrients, including things like B12, your iron, and the magnesium, and zinc. So lots of different nutrients are available from lots of different types of seeds. It makes the food much easier to digest. So what happens is there's something called phytic acid that surrounds nuts and seeds and beans, and this phytic acid prevents us from getting all the nutrient from the food, and it also makes the food harder to digest. So I will nearly always sprout things like broccoli seeds, chickpeas, sunflower seeds. So by doing that, we're going to increase the protein availability, and it's going to break down any gluten within those foods, some natural glutens, which is going to make it much easier to digest. And it's also going to increase the enzymes and the antioxidants. So just another really great way to get, more nutrients into our diet. Now, you can quite often buy a little container full in the supermarkets of sprouted, it might be like alfalfa seeds or mung seeds, but it's in plastic, which is a shame because we don't really want the plastic, we don't want the phthalates, and also it's more expensive. So it is much cheaper to do it yourself. So it might be something, once again, that you want to think about doing that. So you can buy, a good place to have a look is a company called, oh gosh, the name's just gone out of my head, it'll come back to me. But basically, if you have a look online, I've thought about it, it's called Aconbury Sprouts. So that's a really good company to have a look, buy from if you want. They're great quality products on there. They sell sprouting jars. So Aconbury Sprouts, www.aconburysprouts.co.uk, and they just list a whole ream of things you can sprout, from alfalfa to fenugreek to broccoli to lentil. Oh, they've got loads of different things, and you find out what it is that you enjoy the taste of. You get yourself hold of a sprouting jar or a sprouting container. They're available on Amazon. This company sell them also, Aconbury Sprouts, lots of places you'll be able to get them. Or you can simply use a jam jar and poke holes in the lid of the jam jar. And what you would do basically is you would put whatever seed you were going to sprout, you would put it in water for the time that you're advised to do. So quite often it's overnight or 8 hours. There is a few exceptions to that rule. So you'd put it in water, and then in the case of everything, you would then put it into your sprouting container, and you drain the water, you'd put it into your sprouting container, and you'd rinse it 2 to 3 times a day, or 2 to 3 times a day. You'd rinse it, and then after 2 or 3 days it would have sprouted, and you pop it in the fridge, and it's good to go. It's good to eat at that stage. So really great to do. Also with nuts, really great to do the same, but also a little bit more simply with nuts is you might not want to sprout them, but you might want to soak let's do an example of chickpeas. So you might want to buy the dried variety and soak them overnight, and then cook them per the instruction until you're going to use them, because that way you will have broken down the phytic acid. So dried products are going to be much better generally, because we can soak them overnight, cook them per instruction, and then use them, and we're likely to be able to just digest them a little bit more easily. I don't know, there might be some people watching this video who think, I don't get on with beans at all, and it might be that actually you would get on with beans if you did it this way. So just something to think about. So that's sprouting, and then I just wanted to give you some additional little tips to finish off to alkalize. So we have apple cider vinegar, and as long as it has the mother on the label, and it will simply say the mother, then it is really it's great for us for lots of different reasons. And I would suggest you sort of start on half a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons, and you build it up to about 1, maximum of 2 tablespoons a day. So it's really alkalizing. It's really great for balancing our blood sugar. There's some reports that it can lower your blood pressure. So there's lots of different benefits of apple cider vinegar coming out. I will quite often have an apple cider vinegar if I've had a more acidic dinner. So maybe if I've had a naughty little vegan curry from my favourite takeaway, I might have some apple cider vinegar after that. I think I mentioned in the previous video chlorophyll, so that's the other thing that is incredibly alkalizing and good to have in the fridge. So apple cider vinegar is something you can do. I would always suggest you put it in plenty of water because it's going to be acidic on the teeth, but once it goes through the body, it's going to leave an alkalizing ash. And you just want to be careful of your teeth. You should really drink juice and apple cider vinegar with a straw. I have to confess I don't, but you should really, to protect your teeth. Second thing that we've already made reference to, which is amazing from the point of view of alkalizing, is your raw green veg. So yes, steamed is also good, but the raw, if we can have some raw green veg, it's going to just contain an even higher level of the chlorophyll. So, I'm talking about having rocket and celery and cucumber and spinach, lots of different things that are perfectly palatable if they're raw. Watercress, really great. And then your other foods, just to make sure that you only lightly steam them. And also buying organic wherever you can is a really great idea. It depends where you live, what's available, and obviously it depends on your budget. But if you're doing this for health reasons, then you really want to look at buying organic. The other thing is a lemon drink first thing in the morning, which is going to be very good to switch your digestion on. Very alkalizing, very protective for the liver. So having maybe half a lemon squeezed into hot water instead of that caffeinated cup of tea. Having some vegan days or vegan meals. That's a really great way from the point of view of the fact that meat and dairy is particularly acidic. And also, I think we have a tendency in the Western world to eat a lot of meat, and it's really good for us sometimes to just have plants, just to eat plant food and have a day off or a meal off having meat. I always suggest to people that they swap cow's milk for plant milks, or they don't have cow's milk quite as much, they have plant milks. I do food sensitivity testing on people, and I do often find that dairy is an issue. So if you are going to have cow's milk, make sure it's organic. You don't want the the hormones and the antibiotics that have been given to farmed animals. And if you can, swap some of your cow's milk for plant milk. So, on your cereal, maybe instead of having cow's milk, you could have coconut milk or almond milk. If you are going to have soya, make sure it's organic soya only, but do be careful with having too much soya. Limit your alcohol, or, if your health is very compromised, then I would suggest that you avoid it altogether. It's not really going to be helpful, and lots of people do have yeast intolerances, but also it's incredibly acidic, so that's a good thing to avoid. Avoid sparkling and soda water drinks. Funnily enough, it was just somebody I was talking to recently who hadn't realised how acidic sparkling water is, and she'd been drinking it all day long, and she does feel an awful lot better for not having it. So sparkling soda drinks are very acidic, so avoid those if you can. I'm aware that I've sat in a really hot spot in my house. I'm getting redder and redder, but I'm in a very warm room. Eliminate your refined sugars. So we're talking about your casters and your granulated, your processed cakes and biscuits that are very high in refined sugar. And maybe, if you feel you still have to go for some sugar, then try to look at slightly more natural options. They still will impact on your blood sugar, but they're going to be better than, the more refined products. So I'm talking about things like yacon syrup, coconut sugar, xylitol, liquid organic stevia, that type of sweetener. Avoid processed foods. They really are, you know, they are our enemy, processed foods, because, you know, they're full of chemicals, preservatives, colours, you know, just lots of really unnatural things. I always say, when you pick up you know, a packet of food and you look at the back of it, and like, you don't understand any of the long names on it, it's suggesting it's really not going to be very good for us. So do be really careful with that. And finally, a bicarbonate of soda drink is also very alkalizing, which I've been known to do, and it's just simply a teaspoon of bicarbonate soda. And actually, no, the way you do it is you squeeze half a lemon into a glass and you top it up with water, and then you add a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda. I had to think about that. And it goes all fizzy like an Alka-Seltzer, and it's really alkalizing for us, really cleansing, really good for our digestion. So it's just worth you know, knowing that. So those are just a few ideas of how you can support yourself on becoming more alkaline. So you might want to sort of go away and think about how you can do that. The other thing to think about is how to fit it all in. So just be aware, you don't have to do everything all at once. You know, one change is better than no changes. I think if you wanted to fit everything that I've talked about in the 2 videos in, you'd do something like your Sole first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. Then maybe your juice about 20 minutes later, but 30 minutes before you have your breakfast. Your chlorophyll any time of the day. Your lemon shot when you feel you need a further acidic boost. So you won't want to do it every day. Definitely not every day, maybe once a week, maybe twice a week maximum. So if you know you've eaten a lot of acidic foods, so if you watch the first video, you'll see the diagram of the more acidic foods on there. And your cider vinegar, you can have it any time. You can have it first thing in the morning. You can have it before you go to bed, so it balances your blood sugars overnight. So it's you know, it's the chlorophyll and the cider vinegar and the lemon shot are very flexible. The Sole is probably the best one to have first thing in the morning, really. And do remember that you can also use that diluted for eye infections and skin problems. So yeah, hopefully you found the 2 videos useful. And yeah, thank you for watching.